Sir Robert Richard Torrens established what became known as the Torrens title in the Real Property Act 1858 in the Parliament of South Australia. So under a Torrens title, the state maintains a register which describes every parcel of land covered by the system and any rights over other land which ownership of that parcel confers, i.e., who owns what and what pertinents are associated with it, the name of the person who owns that parcel, and a description of any rights over the parcel held by someone other than the owner, i.e., what is it encumbered by. All sounds a little bit familiar, doesn't it? So, from our previous slides, title derivation from a well-indexed register of deeds is where the buyer wants to determine if the ownership is indefeasible and any benefits, responsibilities and restrictions associated with the owned land. As such, they need to identify all the deeds that affect the owned land, determine the relationship between these deeds to validate that the seller has an indefeasible title, identify what beneficial rights there are, i.e. pertinence, and identify what beneficial rights third parties have over the owned land and whether these are restrictions or responsibilities. You're trying to do the same thing. So this is essentially saying that we both have the same view of what a title is. But in this instance, that title is being registered. So what is the difference then between a register of deeds or a register of title? So a fundamental division is between systems which merely register deeds and systems which go further by entering on the register the legal result to which the party is thought to give rise. The former leaves interpretation of deeds to the parties, the latter appropriates it to the registrar. So deed registration is concerned with the registration of a legal fact itself, i.e. the legal instrument. Whereas title registration is concerned with the legal consequence of that fact, the chain of title. And so if you have a chain of title, you can just look at that title deed, as it were, and it tells you everything you need to know about the whole chain. There's no more pesky and onerous searching. So what about non-ownership rights? So what is true of ownership is also true of non-ownership real rights, such as securities or real burdens. So under a Torrens system, a real right which requires registration for its constitution will, under a system of registration of title, be listed in the unique title sheet which is made up for each parcel of land. Its existence and extent can then be discovered at a glance. Right, so essentially it's trying to tell you all of the major food groups that you need to derive title from a register of deeds in one place. Perfect. So in summary, a title registration system doesn't register the deed but describes the legal change, although that deed may also be registered, but it describes the legal consequences of a change in terms of how it affects a piece of owned land. The resultant title serves as indefeasible evidence of the chain of title, so that the person recorded on the register is the owner. The title also materializes the benefits, responsibilities and restrictions in respect of those ownership rights. However, a register of title does not show its calculations. It doesn't show how it got to understand this current state. So one can derive title from a register of deeds, but one cannot easily recreate deeds from a register of title. It's an important point. We'll return to it later on. So there's three principles of a register of title. These are the mirror principle. The register reflects all facts material to an owner's title in land. The information that is shown is deemed to be both complete and accurate. There is a curtain principle. The register is the sole source of information about the legal title. You don't need to look behind the curtain to confirm what's there. There is an underlying assumption here that there's no off-register overriding interests. And there's an indemnity principle, which provides for compensation of loss caused by private fraud or errors on the register. And these principles are in there to deal with the fact that there are differences in legal security between a register of deeds and a register of title. And the main problem that you see from a register of title is solving this search problem. So the main advantage of a register of title lies in adherence to the mirror principle, or at least to that aspect of the principle which deems the information on the register to be correct. If issues of ownership and other rights can be determined merely by a glance at the register, That is a gain both for facility of transfer and for legal certainty, and the person holding a land certificate has the reassurance of a good title. So registration of title eliminated that need to re-examine the validity of a title for each transaction and was accordingly simpler and cheaper to operate. Now, I see that broadly as a problem of indexing. And we've already shown in our idealized indexing scenario that this is no longer a problem using modern techniques and modern technology. Again, we will open that box a little bit later. So, is life as simple as that with a title register? What are the costs in terms of using title registration, particularly in terms of the variation in legal position? And what happens when things go wrong? We'll dive into each of those in a later video.